welcome to the program. We're back with Radio Melee, and we fired PPMD. Haha, just kidding. No, we haven't fired PPMD, but apparently he's been having car trouble, and he's going to be here in like 20 minutes or something. Like, I think, sounds like, I don't know. I think it's probably just really hot where he is, and, you know, cars have trouble. So he's coming back, but in lieu of having PP at the start of the episode, we've got just as legendary, if not more so, of a Falco player. What's up, Ginger? How you doing?
I appreciate that. Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Toph?
Oh man, I'm doing good. And I just got back from, let me tell you, tournament season is back on the menu. I just got back from CEO yesterday. First Panda Cup tournament. I'm going to Gommel tomorrow. You going to be at Gommel? What are you going to be at?
I'm going to Gommel. Yeah. You know, tournament season's back, and you know, I agree obviously, but I didn't think so. Here's my thing: is I haven't competed. I don't know if we're ever gonna get into this or if you plan on asking me, but like I haven't competed in person since the Function 2, which was also the last tournament that I won.
Yeah.
I feel like some people are probably curious about how I'm gonna do soon or in the future.
Oh, you got some expectations on you.
I probably have some expectations, but you know, I had the opportunity. I could have gone to Battle of BC. I could have gone to CEO. But I was like, well, those are sort of like stepping stone tournaments. They're not really like a big deal. Nobody's probably going to go to those. They're like in Vancouver and in Florida and Daytona. As CEO is always sort of like an FGC thing. And then they were huge. They had tons of really good people there. Hungrybox and Plup went to CEO, which I didn't expect. And then Battle of BC just ended up being like the most stacked tournament of the universe.
That was like a super major top 8 wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm sitting here like, man, the only reason I didn't go to these tournaments is because they're kind of out of the way from the Midwest. And then, you know, I have all these other tournaments coming up, but maybe I should have gone to those. It's insane. Yeah.
That's how it goes. But Gommel, I think, is going to have basically everybody. Double Down, you doubling down?
I am going to Double Down, yeah.
Everyone's doubling down. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of good events coming up. Saw IBW's travel schedule for the rest of the year. Looks crazy. But in lieu of PP being here, who knows when he'll arrive, but I got some questions. You know, PP usually thinks of some thoughtful questions before we get into the meat and potatoes of Radio Melee, which of course is we're going to bring callers on, and they're going to ask us whatever they want to ask us. And to those of you in the chat, if you want to do that, it's real simple. Type in !Radio Melee. In fact, in my chat, I'll go ahead and do it for you. And you can click on that Discord link, jump in my Discord, and in fact, click on either of those Discord links. There's 2 that came up. Anyway, yeah, you can just jump in, and there's a channel that's called Submit Topics here. You just type in whatever question you want. We're going to get you on. First come, first serve, basically, usually, kind of, to a certain degree. But, okay, before we get into that, I figured I'd ask some questions directed from PPMD, and one of those is something that I'm actually really curious about, which is, how did the Function 2 win feel? I mean, is that like your biggest achievement so far? I mean, you know, you started as like a really, you talk about this a lot. I think people think of you as a more, not new school, but more new school, but really you started as a very old school player in like 03 or something, right? So
yeah, how
does this win help to encourage others who may be daunted by, you know, their peers' early growth?
Ooh, man, I love this question. So one thing, there's a few components to this question that I'd love to get to. So I'll start off by not being intimidated by your peers who have been playing for a long time or people who have already seen recent success. I think that is, man, it's just always a challenge. But right now, I even made a video about this, is the best time to get into Melee. And I said this, by the time I made a video about it, I think it was like 3 years ago or something. We still had delay-based netcode. But I was like, look, you could get into a million Discord groups, talk with a bunch of different people. You could play on NetPlay. You have, you know, Uncle Punch 20XX, I think, is all we had back then. But I mean, 20XX was enough. I was like, you can just get good so fast. Like, sure, Mango's been playing for 10 years or whatever. But, I mean, Cody's been playing for half that amount of time and is in that same realm. You know what I mean? And even more so today, where we have Slippy, we have Uncle Punch, we still have 20XX. Discord groups are even more active than ever. Top players are helping each other out in all sorts of different ways. So I just feel like it's always possible, no matter like where you're coming from, if you've been playing for a long time or if you haven't been. And also there's a lot of meta development that's been going on, easier access to VOD review using Slippy replays and stuff like that. We're in the coaching boom, which has been going on for the past, year or so. And so anybody can get good, whatever. Yeah, I've been playing since 2003. I like to think that my career is defined by perseverance. So I like to say I'm the losingest smasher of all time. And I truly might be. Because I have been playing since 2003, but I've never been a top player until now. So there has just been this grueling, repetitive process of practicing really hard, looking at my VODs, practicing what I've learned, going to tournaments, getting my ass whooped, going back to the lab, just this whole cycle. And it's really just about trusting the process. So that's how I kind of find my confidence, is that I trust the process. I know that now is a fantastic time to improve at Melee. But also, to answer another part of your question, the Function 2 win, I feel like in terms of, maybe even number of entrants, I'm not sure about that. But I feel like in terms of the quality of skill at the tournament, had to probably be my biggest achievement yet.
You beat a lot of different players in a lot of different matchups too, right? There was Slug, right?
Yeah, I like to consider myself pretty well-rounded. And I ran into a few different matchups that I'm pretty comfortable in too. A lot of people don't know this about me, but my brother, I've been playing since 2003. I played with my brother for a very long time. His tag, actually, I don't know if we've been over this, was BBQ. And then
really?
Toph BBQ, and he would always mention that. Yeah.
The brother of Ginger, I'll remember that. I'll say hi to him one day.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But he actually played Ice Climbers my whole life. So, and I know the meta is different now, and wobbling's not a thing, and Slug has brought a ton to the table. But being familiar with Nana's AI and understanding the combo weight and knowing when to not overextend, all that stuff still applies. So, yeah, like I said, I like to consider myself pretty well-rounded. And yeah, the one kind of unfortunate thing about my Function 2 run is that I didn't run into Cody. I would have loved to have played Cody or have taken him out. It would have maybe felt a little bit more legitimized if I had actually done that, but it felt great regardless. And I beat the people that beat Cody, so that's got to mean something, right?
Who won between you and Cody the last time you played?
Ooh, that...
Because I remember you beat him at main stage.
I did.
That felt pretty recent,
Yeah. Yeah, so, I can't remember if we played in person other than that. We might have played one more online set, and then he may have taken that one. Man, I'm blanking on that. But yeah, I know that we're about even in lifetime in sets, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So at that point, can't even say it was a fluke because you didn't play Cody. You've clearly demonstrated the ability to defeat him. But is that is accurate though? You started, kind of back in when did you go to your first larger tournaments, I suppose, just to kind of put everything in perspective?
Yeah, so I started playing back in 2003, but in reality, if we want to go all the way back, is that I played on release, and I played every single day from release up until my first tournament, which was in 2003.
Wow.
So that's why I consider my career to start in 2003, when in reality, I played every single day and I was practicing, but quote unquote practicing. Back in 2001, there's not a lot you could do. But so my first big tournament, I want to say big tournament, it was just an anime convention. And there were some people who knew how to do a couple little advanced techniques. Nobody that was a pro or anything at the time, or had been into an MLG event or anything like that, which, MLG wasn't even running at the time. But yeah, big anime convention called JFAX, running at a local college. There was 100 entrants or something. And my brother and I got first and second, which was cool. But yeah, my brother ended up going to a very large tournament in Chicago at the time. And I couldn't go because I was 8 years old, or 7 maybe at the time. I had to go to school or whatever. But my brother travels to Chicago, and we expect him to go win the tournament. This is sort of the history of my career. We expect him to just go win because we're the best of the world. He plays Roy.
Right.
Roy has the fire.
Yeah, really strong.
Strong element. Really strong. Exactly.
Yeah.
He runs into Chu, Ho Chi Minh Trail, Dope, all the Midwest.
I'm starting to see why he picked up Ices.
Yeah, yes. There's a lot of Ices influences for sure.
Yeah.
But runs into literally all the pros. Ends up losing to Chu. Chu played with one hand in friendlies. And didn't tell anybody.
I've heard this story. He beat your brother?
He beat my brother. 2-star.
Oh, I kept hearing. I've heard the story of Chu beat such and such with one hand.
Yep.
I didn't know it was Ginger's brother.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then so this was sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This was at the like house local / Smash Fest / everybody sleeping at the couch in the place nearby, like fest the day before the big tournament. And my brother lost to everybody there because they're all actually good at the game. They know how to like wave dash, L cancel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
And so my brother doesn't even go to the tournament. He because he's so demoralized. He's like, I don't have a shot in hell. This is just a waste of time. So he plays a bit, spends the night, and then he drives back. And he pulls up the driveway, and I say to him, like, oh, Cody, like, how much money did you win? He's like, money did I win? I didn't even enter the tournament. It was a waste of time. We're awful at the game. But he had talked with a couple people there. I don't know if you're familiar with these names, but Eddie and Tink.
Oh yeah. I met Tink, I think, at Big House too. But anyway, go on.
I believe it. So Eddie and Tink came to my house because they like took the route. They like stopped by my house. My brother was like, "Look, you guys are so much better than us. Will you come teach us a few things?" My brother's really into the game. We have like a whole crew. We did have a crew at the time. And they taught us all about wave dashing, wave landing, L canceling, how to tech properly, how to wall tech, how to pillar combo with Falco.
You learned from those guys.
Yep, those were
you learned from Eddie.
My mentors. Eddie, I know.
That's insane. That's the first. That's like the first best player from the Midwest.
Exactly, which is crazy. And so I learned a lot from Eddie. I ended up running back into him in like 2015 at some Chicago local, and I force-stomped him. And I was like, how things have changed since I was 7. Sorry, by the way, if I'm rambling. Feel free to cut me off.
No. I mean, this is fascinating. You're 7. You were literally 7.
Literally 7. And so I learned how to do all that. And then I learned how to do home run contest. I would do like the Ganondorf thing where you toss the bat up, do the reverse Ganondorf punch, and it does the glitch or whatever. I could do that when I was 8. So I was like able to L cancel and do the double, the grab drop bat, down there. I get the hit lag. I fucking L cancel it. So I had like some amount of tech skill, and every day I would wave shine a peach across Dreamland repeatedly. Because there's no 20XX or Uncle Punch. But
right.
So all of this just to say that finally we had some tech skill. We were decent at the game. We could do things, and then there was a large tournament in East Lansing. And I say large tournament because there were just pros there. Dope was there, who was one of the best players in the world at the time. Who was truly my hero at the time. If anybody's unfamiliar, I'm not talking about Dope, the Samus player who lives in Canada. It's the Falco player.
Yeah,
it's just amazing. He put out a combo video, and it was incredibly inspiring. It was cool. I actually took a game off of Dope's Bowser in the tournament on Rainbow Cruise.
That's how tournaments were back then.
That's how tournaments were. And you know what the prize was for that tournament, Toph?
What was it?
It was Dope's old controller that he didn't want anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, but Trail was there. And just like there were so many pros. I can't even remember everybody's names, but it was super fun. And we were kind of holding our own and having some good matches. And people were like considered me like this little kid prodigy at the time. I was 8, maybe even 9. At that point, and that was like a real tournament. Dope ended up winning his own tournament, kept his controller. But yeah, that's kind of when it all started for me. That's kind of my introduction to tech skill, advanced techniques, the scene, and all that kind of stuff.
That is insane. Yeah, I mean, if you learn from Eddie, then you truly are. That's first generation, as far as I'm concerned. First generation. Eddie, of course, for everyone in the chat who might not be as familiar with Melee from that era, is the reason, or rather, he's the recipient of the reason that we banned the pipe stage, which I think is called. What is that stage? It's called like Yoshi's Island or something. It's
Yoshi's Island, yeah.
Yeah, which is like a ridiculous name because there's way too many stages that feel like they should be named Yoshi's Island. I think that one is actually called Yoshi's Island though. We just call it pipes. And that stage is banned because there's a very famous old video of a tournament match between him and I believe it was Zelgadis, where Zelgadis wave shined him up the pipe to his doom like 3 times. And then I think people said, well, if you can do this, we probably need to ban this stage. This is probably a little bit too strong for Fox. So
I think we ended up banning all walk-off stages at that point in time too.
Which is
like, oh well, Foxes could just wave shine. This is like a thing
now. If that's a thing, then you need probably to ban. I mean, there's other reasons those stages should probably be banned, but yeah. Wow, that is actually really amazing. And it's cool to see. Yeah, I mean, coming from that to obviously winning the function 2 and being a top. I mean, I feel like you've really stepped it up quite recently. Like not even just function 2, but like main stage, right? I think anyone who's taking down Cody in 2021, 2022, like there's like a pretty short list of people who were playing at that caliber. So that's really excited to see how you do at Gommel. And I'm sure a lot of people are. Something else I wanted to ask you too is, do you still have the view that like Falco is like the strongest character? Because I think you're famously a big Falco up player. And I think I've always thought, me personally, that I've always thought Falco is a very polarizing character in this lens because I feel like half the Falco mains think he sucks and Falco's really hard to win with, and like, oh my god, this character has to work so much harder than every other character, doesn't have throw combos. Like 5 frame jump squat, doesn't have a real dash, lasers are fake, you just power shield them or take them and they don't do anything. Or, you have people like Fiction, who are like, Falco's really just busted and way too, just unbeatable if you play him correctly, Why do you think Falco, so like what are your views and why do you think Falco is this kind of polarizing? And you agree that he does seem polarizing, right? Because I think we have encountered these sorts of Falco down players as well.
Yep.
So why do you think that is? Yeah.
So, first of all, I am a gigantic Falco believer. I think the Falco is the best character in the game. I don't think he's the best character in the game by a lot. But I think it's clear enough to me that there's a distinction, which I think is important, right? Yeah. I'm saying that I think he is clear enough to me the best character in the game, and I wouldn't put him in like an unordered tier with Fox or Marth or Puff or whoever the heck people would consider best in the game. Yeah. And reasons why let's talk about being polarizing for a second. So this is a funny example sometimes I like to talk about, is that do you know Subway, like Subway sandwiches?
Yeah.
I worked there for 3 years. I was like a manager, essentially.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I actually love Subway, even having worked there, which a lot of people, if they work at a food place, they end up hating it eventually. I actually, literally, I'm not lying, I ordered Subway today. I just ate it. But
amazing.
But Subway's a polarizing place. Some people love Subway, some people hate Subway.
I see where this is going.
But so you go there and you make your own sandwich. If you think Subway's bad, it might just be your fault, right?
Yeah. I've seen that tweet too. It's like people go to Subway and complain about the food. It's like, bro, you made the sandwich.
Exactly. So, I feel this way kind of with Falco, where you think Falco sucks? Like that might just be your fault, brother. So I do think that Falco is really hard to play. And I think that sometimes people have a hard time discerning what is consistent to be able to do in tournament, what's just theory. Truly, they have this idea of what actually happens, which in their mind is that you do a bunch of stuff, you hit your opponent a bunch, you outplay them a ton, and then eventually you get grabbed and die, possibly at 0. And they just accept this as like the reality of what really happens when you play in tournament as Falco. And I think some of that is some confirmation bias of that happening to them. I think that some of it's just like that's the narrative that's sort of permeated its way into the community somehow. And also, since Falco is such a difficult character to wield and has like less quote unquote guaranteed setups, I might say, like off of a grab, like Puff or Fox or Marth might have. In the past, when people weren't amazing at the game or didn't have amazing tech skill, it did sort of function like that. Ken could just counter against PC Chris and then he'd get knocked down at 0 and then life kind of sucked. But things are a lot more complicated. Spacing's a lot more complicated. We have a lot of information that we didn't have before. Slide offs are a thing. And truly, like, if you're getting gimped at 0, so much of the time that's your fault. And Falco can play in so many diverse different ways that people have to be ready for. There's just no reason that sort of thing should be happening. And so I feel like that has sort of just infected people's minds, which is why he's so polarizing. And then just last thing is like, why do I feel like he's the best? I just think that he, as opposed to a lot of other characters in the game, has a lot of reactable hit confirms. that do a lot of damage, and then if we just take the game for what it is, right, which is really the amount of neutral openings you get, the quality of those neutral openings, which lead to how many openings it takes to kill your opponent.
Right.
And then
all those slippy stats we see at the end of matches, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And with that, how well are you able to mitigate those openings and punishes from your opponent? That is what the game is, right?
Yeah.
If we think about it that simply, I think that Falco gets himself in better risk-reward situations than almost any character in the game consistently. Actually, better than any other character in the game consistently. And I think that this is all human tournament viable sort of things that he can do to punish his opponent or to mitigate the damage from his opponent. And I think that he's able to control neutral and get openings more consistently with more reward than any other character in the game as well. And that's for a number of, crazy reasons that spurred out into a billion different decision trees. But that's essentially how I view it, and that's why I think he's the best.
And you think he's the best at... Do you think he's the best at getting the openings and comboing off them, or do you think he's like so much better at getting openings in general that it doesn't matter if he doesn't hit as hard as some of the other characters?
So I think that...
do you think he's the best at both of those, or?
That's a great question. I don't think for sure that he has the best punish game. It's hard to tell, I will say, because a lot of times with other characters, you could just flowchart things out. And really flowchart things out if you're like a super nerd about it, right? Like Leffner or Armada might have done in Fox Dittos back in the day, right? Yeah, you're like, you do this, if they DI this way, you do this, and then you up throw them, you cover this amount of text by doing this, and then you cover that. With Falco, it's like that, but it's so much harder. SDI makes things complicated, but you could account for the SDI. You could do it on reaction. Going for a read might yield some large amount of reward that going for a reaction might not. But maybe you go for the reaction, then just play the position afterwards. With Marth, a lot of the times it's like, well, you just go for your combo, and then your combo's eventually over, and then you do the edge guard or the tech knockdown or whatever the heck. Falco's just very complicated to analyze in that way, so it's hard to tell. But I think it's close enough to all of the other characters that people might assume have very good punish games, that his control of neutral and ability to prevent his opponent from getting large openings and ability to open up his opponent with large openings makes up for it. So yeah, I think he dominates neutral more so than his punish game ends up out punishing the other top tiers. That
makes sense to me, and that's kind of how I was always sort of felt about him, is like, and there's matchups where I think this is really like exemplified, like Falco Marth, where I think, Marth is generally going to hit Falco harder than Falco hits Marth, even though that's even that has a little bit of an asterisk on it.
Yep.
But there are, so many situations where I feel like the Falco has like a slight advantage, and if you can just kind of play those situations correctly enough, you can kind of just outperform the Marth, and eventually you're just going to take 4 stocks before they do. But and then of course it turns into this battle of, can they get enough openings and can they capitalize on them well enough that they can sort of mitigate that. But yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting, and I do think that that's kind of the cool thing, is like no one really knows for sure. No one really there's no one out there still who can say for sure what the best character in the game is. There's no one out there who can say for sure what even the top 5 are, and it's been 20 years, which is just kind of bonkers. But okay, I mean, this was dope. Those are all my questions and PP's questions, I think, for now. We might as well start getting into some of the questions from the chat. But before we do that, let's real quick take a look at the community voice. So before we went on the hiatus between season 3 and season 4, we had Laud on in our most recent episode. And Laud asked all of our YouTube viewers out there, as you will do at the end of this episode, you can think of whatever question you want to ask the Smash community and the Radio Melee audience. But Laud asked, what 2 players would you want to see a fusion of? And so we got some answers here. James, could be Duck, who knows, said, CV, Armada plus Mango equals the GOAT, just to put this shit to bed. Fox Falco Peach player, he stands 7 foot tall with Armada's accent, Mango's infectious laugh, he's Android's brother and Lucky's friend, and he drinks a lot of beer. Jabokus plus Mook Daddy equals J-Bo. I don't know what happened there at the end there, but genius answer. Yeah, no one ever has to talk about it again. You got our Mango and Armada and Mango, and they're just the best to ever do it, and they're just a perfect human being. Love that. Schmidt Cinema Studies says Wizzy plus Mango equals Mizzy. Ooh, that's a strong combination. The optimal tech chasing style and the reactive read based style seem so far apart from each other. A player could be great at both, tech chase some death consistently, and also do well when things get close quarters and scrappy. I think they'd be unbeatable. J-Mook seems closer to that than most, which is why I think so many people love his playstyle. We were actually talking a lot about, I think, J-Mook last episode, which kind of explains why so many of these responses are kind of referring to him. And Matt Zors says Plup plus Pipsqueak equals Piplup. I think this person just wanted to.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, that's the penguin Pokemon. Plup's insane movement is augmented even further by a box controller. Pipsqueak's methodical approach to the game with Plup's raw ability is truly a force to be reckoned with. Pip half benefits from living in the States. Okay, sure. Where he can get better practice and amazing name synergy. Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, I think that's a pretty good combination, but you really just wanted to make the Piplup joke. I see through you there, Matsuras. But okay, I think we're about ready to bring on our first caller. And we got Moose. I don't know if this is that Moose. I guess we'll find out if it is. But welcome, Moose. Where are you calling in from today?
Hey, I'm calling in from North Carolina.
North Carolina. That's a different Moose then. Okay, but
Yeah,
what's up?
There are like 7 of us. I'm actually in a crew battle that's only Mooses.
Oh my god.
Whoa.
Hope you guys win.
Yeah, Team Moose.
You say mooses, by the way? Isn't it moose?
It is, but like I'm not talking about the animal. I'm talking about the people.
Oh, okay. There's the
Wait, it's not Meese?
It's not.
Crazy. Okay. Well, what's your question today, Moose?
Yeah. So my question is: since PPMD's hiatus starting in around 2016, Mango's been the only player playing Falco to consistently make it deep into top 8s of majors and super majors. Why has he been the only player to do this when you have a lot of good Falcos in the top 30, 20 range compared to characters like Sheik or Fox and even Marth now with Kadoran?
Sure.
You want me to start talking about this one, Toph?
Yeah, I think this is up your alley.
Perfect. Okay. So, one thing is that Mango is just better at everything than every other Falco in the world. that's a really helpful part. But on top of that,
be good.
Being good is really, really helpful. But he's also the most consistent. And that's really difficult to achieve. And I know a lot of people, his last 2 tournaments or whatever were lackluster, but I mean, he got like 7th or 5th or something at those tournaments regardless. His ability to have consistent tech skill, even on his off days, is really, really helpful. His experience with top players is something that I think carries him a lot farther than people realize. I think that he grew up in a region and had people with him that were very high level. Even today, if you see him playing on stream, I don't think I've ever seen him play unranked once. I don't know if he's done it. I don't know if he's ever queued up. So he's always playing against Zane or like the worst person, and I'm sorry, that he plays is Null. And so having consistent high-level practice is something that a lot of other top Falcos don't have access to. And like for an extreme example, right, is that like he plays against Zane in tournament. Well, he has like 1,000 hours logged with just Zane, and I might have 20. That's maybe. And I know it's the same for all of the other top Falcos too. So when it comes to being a tournament mainstay in those top 8s or whatever, having the experience against those people that you're going to end up playing in those later parts of the tournament is huge. And I think there's a bunch of other small reasons too. Like I think his seed, because of his legacy, sort of carries him pretty nicely through the tournament brackets up until top 8s. I think that he has other characters that sometimes he's able to rely on, like his Fox throughout the years if he has like an off day or a bad matchup or something. But in all reality, I think that he's able to figure out players really well. He's just incredibly consistent and has a lot of experience.
That makes total sense. Yeah. You think that's going to change at any time soon? Like, I mean, you're starting to put up those sorts of results.
I'd like to think so, obviously. I think that, the top Falcos are kind of working together a little bit more cleanly recently. Even Mango has discussed some ideas. I haven't DM Mango in forever, except until recently, where we've talked about some ideas about punish and stuff. So I feel like people are collaborating more on improving. I also feel like with Slippy being the way that it is, I mean, we can get all types of top level practice a lot more consistently. Like literally back in 2013, what are you going to do? Mango's going to be playing against Lucky and SUJ. I guess I'll play against Duck every 3
Right.
weeks or something.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that we will see more top Falcos dip into the top 8s. I think me, Fiction, Magi, and of course other Falcos are absolutely capable of doing it.
Yeah. Makes sense. What do you think about that, Moose?
Yeah, I think it's a great response, and what you're talking about even before the question about Falco's volatility, really makes it more difficult compared to like Fox and Sheik, where you have more bread and butter confirms.
I used to have this theory that, and I still sort of do, that the average, we say net play Falco, right? And we kind of throw that around as a meme, but like, I've always kind of felt like the average net play Falco at a certain point in their career, instead of becoming a good Falco, they switch characters and become a net play Fox. And this was my theory back in Anthra's Ladder. I would see this happen all the time. But I do sort of feel like there's a shred of truth in it. Like I just kind of would notice this sort of trend. And I felt like for a long time, there were more instances, and this is not true recently. Notably, recently, it's kind of gone the other direction. But I feel like for a long time, I felt like there were more Falcos that felt like they needed to switch to Fox than vice versa. Lately, we have examples like KJH, Fiction, of people actually switching in the other direction. But I feel like that's a, relatively speaking, extremely recent phenomenon. So,
can I speak on that real quick, actually?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, oh my God, look who it is!
Oh, and we've got
Traffic was crazy. Traffic was crazy. What can I say?
Oh, yeah. What can you say?
What was going on? I'm so sorry, everyone.
No problem.
Thanks for sticking around.
Car issues. We explained.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, what are we talking about, Toph? Guide me onto the track once more.
Switching to Fox, switching to Falco.
Genius. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that eventually these netplay Falcos almost evolve into netplay Foxes, right? So I view this as a consequence of sort of how the meta goes as you develop your skill. So Falco at very low level has an easy time winning. You learn how to short hop laser and you do your pillar combo into forward smash. And the mid-level Sheiks or the low-level Sheiks just can't keep up. What are they gonna do? They can't tech chase or whatever. What are the Captain Falcons gonna do? They're just dying over there, getting hit by every up tilt or whatever.
Right.
And then you get to mid-level, things get a little bit more complicated. And I think in today's world, the mid-level players have access to so much anti-Falco tech, whatever you want to call it, that it can be a frustrating transition from mid-level player to high-level player as a Falco main. It's like, okay, every single person, and PP, I'm so happy you're here. You're the first person I ever heard say people need to stop shielding after they get hit by lasers. You said that back in, I don't even know when, 2013 or something. And I heard you say that, and I was like, I wonder what PP means by that. Which is hilarious today because nobody, I mean, unless you're just lost in the matchup, shields every single time after they get hit by a laser. So you queue up on unranked, you're a Falco player, wanted to dunk some kids, and then every Fox is doing take laser turnaround up tilt, and every Marth is doing take laser dash back pivot grab, and it's like, okay, I could be really precise, and I could have some very specific call out to all this. Or I could be Fox and full hop and up smash and wave shine people. I don't know. That seems kind of fun to me. So that's kind of how I see why some people might give up on the Falco dream of transitioning to a high-level Falco, and maybe seeing that flow chart stability that we talked about with other characters kind of being inviting to them, if that makes sense.
I started as a Falco main, and I actually switched, I play Fox now, so I switched to Fox at some point. I dual main for a while, and then I switched fully to Fox. And my reasoning for doing that was very specific. I was in Japan at the time, and I was playing FD only, and there was this Marth player that I would have to fight every week, who also hosted the Smash Fest. So literally, I had to fight him all the time. And his power shield rate was like 95% or more. And I just got I was just like, dude, this is just too hard. Like, I just don't want to deal with this. Like, his neutral was he would crouch there and he would power shield every laser, and it was just annoying to approach him. And I was like, you know what? This guy's doing this now. In a few years, everyone's going to be doing this. That didn't really come true. But I was like, dude, I mean, this guy's so good at power shielding that, this is just so much more painful than it needs to be. I'm just going to play Fox. I don't know if anyone else making this switch had the same sort of concrete this is an opponent that I just don't want to deal with in this matchup or whatever. But for me, that was frustrating, just fighting a power shielder on FD over and over and over and over and over on no other stages. But I am guilty of making the Falco to Fox switch. Why do you think that my theory with some of the recent switches to Falco is I feel like I have this kind of theory that I feel like the community is more empowered now because we just know more about the game to theory craft Falco. And we're more empowered to do that than we used to be, because I think that Falco is just harder to talk about when it comes to his flowcharts, I think, than basically every other top tier. I mean, when Sheik gets a grab, what do? You down throw, and if you can chain grab them, you chain grab them, and if you can't, then you tech chase them. That's pretty easy to describe. When Falco gets a grab, what do? Well, you guys both know the answer to that. It's kind of complicated. So, I just think that like Falco is the kind of character that it makes sense that earlier in a meta is going to be a little bit more mystical, if you will. The sorts of people that are going to play him are just they're going to say things like, well, you do everything by feel, which is partially true. But I do think that we've kind of come to the point with Melee where we know enough about it now that it's 20 goddamn years old that I think that we're better at forming flowcharts for that character than we used to be. I don't know if you guys agree with that. I see you nodding, so I hope you both do. But I don't know if that makes sense. I agree.
So can I talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I mean, like, PP, it's so crazy that you're here and I'm talking.
Finally,
I know.
Radio Melee.
I know. So beautiful. Like, we're literally PP's on the podcast. He's like the guy. You go to his Falco thread and you say, "Hey PP, I have this situation that I have to deal with. Like, what's the flow chart, right?" And then PP has some brilliant answer that nobody thought about and everybody loves it. Is how things have gone forever. And obviously, you've even helped me a ton. But I had like a weird Smurf account on there. But whatever. I think that we don't just have a Smashboard thread anymore. We have like, a bunch of like, I run a top level Falco Discord. PP, you're welcome to join if you want. Where we talk about a bunch of different matchups. We have video examples. We have Slippy replays. Everybody's analyzing for each other and working together and doing all this kind of stuff. And so, one small thing that I will say is that while we have more information about the game and it's easier to make these flowcharts, the defensive aspects of the game have also improved. So it's like, okay, this person is aiming their DI to get a slide off on the platform, and they're going to intentionally miss their tech so that they can do something immediately afterwards. Like, well, what's the flowchart for this now, man? Like, god dang it. These things didn't always exist. That kind of always existed. But you know what I mean. There's slide offs for Falco's down air. Down air used to just pop people up. It doesn't pop people up anymore. They're holding down.
That was a good time.
Oh my goodness. I miss those days. So, things are complicated more on the defensive ends, but there's a lot of people motivated to figure these things out, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, to follow up on some of that real quick, because I don't know how long this topic's been going, I'll just say that while Mango is the guy, I think, we need to be paying attention to, Ginger getting the good result recently and continuing to have the upward trend, which is, indicative of growth. I've seen a ton of what Fiction and KJH and others are labbing. And so the wave for Falco, at some point is coming. There are people that, again, like Ginger, who are very poised to bring that out. And it's really only, seeing that more and more. And then we'll see a big result. We'll say, oh, well, where'd that come from? Well, we're telling you right now, it's coming. People are labbing it. And I think because there's almost been a lab gap with Falco because of how much people haven't been labbing, that's coming in now, which is what Toph was saying earlier. So yes, if you just look at the past, you're seeing one thing, but I think if you're looking at what work is being laid now, whether it's everyone doing it now or someone that makes the switch or whatever, that's all going to come together. And I think we are going to see that Falco's going to be able to do it in a big way.
What do you think about that, Moose?
I think that's all really helpful. Quick question, Ginger. Do you know about the cookbooks, right?
I do, yeah.
What are your thoughts on a Falco cookbook? Because that seems like something as a net play Falco, it's kind of hard to find a lot of this like information. It's like, hey, when you see this SDI, this is what you can do to counter it. You can down tilt, you can wait out at the grab, stuff like that.
I know what you want to say.
Yeah, it's just It would be so hard
It'd be
Yeah,
so.
it.
It would have to have so much, right?
Yeah, so
It's so complicated.
does anybody else know of the kind of Kitsune Fox guide?
I do.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, I do.
It's like a 190-page document.
Game facts. It's a game facts guide.
It's long. It's beefy. I read the
Yeah.
whole thing. But
Really? Wow.
yeah, I read the whole thing. I'm like that. But
Nice.
God, the Falco cookbook would have to just be so complicated. And
I bet.
it would require so much work and dedication from so many people to figure all that out and write it all down and have all these examples. I'd love for it to happen. I think it would be great. But man, even if you wanted to get invested into, reading the cookbook, I think it would be complicated. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see something like that happen, but it's just tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chef Rockman actually just started the Fox Cookbook, which is actually a Discord.
Right.
Mhm.
We're just waiting for him to work on Falco. He's already
Yeah.
expressed interest. We're just gonna let him do
Oh,
it. I
okay.
think.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Never mind
Yeah.
then.
But
Yeah. Thank you,
I
Moose,
think-
for calling in.
I
We
think
appreciate it.
it's got potential for sure. But yeah, I definitely agree that it would be a monumental undertaking.
For sure. For sure.
But yeah, thank you, Moose, for calling in. You got any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah. I want to shout out App State Melee in Boone, North Carolina. Small college town. I'm going to be going there in the fall, and their melee scene's popping off. They get like 40-man monthlies for a town of 20,000.
That is really cool.
And yeah, I feel it's the first melee community that I've been in where it seems like everyone's just homies and they're like playing poker at one dude's house on a Sunday night, you know.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So
The friends we made along the way.
exactly.
It's what it's all about.
For sure.
All right.
Take
Well,
care.
thanks for
gamers.
calling in, Moose. Yep. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
calling
having
in,
me
and have a great time labbing Falco.
I'll try.
All
See
right.
you guys.
I think it's about time to get our next caller. PP, it's good that you're here. We got to talk a good bit about your questions.
How
that you had
many did
written
you
up.
get?
I
you get
did
all?
2 of them. I didn't get the health one,
All right, well,
but
let's
I
see
did
if
the
we
other
wanna
2.
do
But we
that.
had so much to talk about with the other 2 that I felt
Okay,
like
yeah,
it
I
was-
figured
yeah.
they'd be good. And Ginger,
They were-
every time
they
I
were
came on,
juicy questions.
He's been answering great eloquently, so no problem
Thank you.
there.
Yep.
But yeah, we got our next caller on here, Rox 506. Welcome on in. Where are you calling in from? What's your question for us today?
Hi, everybody. I'm calling from San Jose, Costa Rica.
Oh, very
Nice.
nice.
The other
Awesome.
San Jose. I want to go there one day.
You should come totally. This is my question. I see this tweet made from Hungrybox about his earning in 5th place in CEO, and he earned $75. Right?
Yes.
So you as a Smash players needs to balance how you earn money. Could be content creation either through Twitch or through getting lessons or whatever, right? Having practice for being a professional player, because these tournaments are tough and this is a tough game.
Yeah.
So how do you balance different incomes or generate different incomes through content creation or whatever, practicing this super hard sport or e-sport that is playing Melee?
Can I take this one as well?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. First of all, hi Rox. It's great to actually talk to you and figure out that you're not actually a bot.
No, I am not actually a bot, but I could keep pretending that I am one.
Rox is a longtime member of my community. Hangs out. all
Oh,
the time.
nice.
Yeah,
I
and
feel like
there
I've
was
seen him in chat.
There was a joke that
That's
Rox
cool.
was a bot because of their responses sometimes. Anyway, yeah. So I will say that this balance of things is probably the most difficult thing in my life, and I don't think that it's for most people. One time I was interviewed by this high schooler that had to do like a journalism thing, and I thought it was so cool. He wanted to interview me, and he was like, "How does somebody get to be like you?" And I was like, "Dear God, the sacrifices I've made in my life, and like the risks I have had to take, like financially, are not for everybody, and it's really hard." And you want to be an entertaining content creator, but at the same time, it takes practice and serious practice, not funny haha practice, to get good at the game. And
Yep.
if you don't get good at the game, you're not going to command respect or earn viewers and all that kind of stuff, have the opportunities that somebody else might have, create a legacy, all this sort of things that somebody
Right.
in like an organization might be interested in. So at least in my experience, I couldn't have anything else going on in my life. I had to like dive
Mhm.
into this and commit myself 110% because
Mhm.
there just like almost aren't enough hours in the day, it feels like. You have to work on your YouTube videos, and hopefully some of that's coming from your Twitch stream so that you don't have to double up and do a separate YouTube thing and a Twitch thing on top of your off-stream practice and then your IRL
Mhm.
practice, all that kind of stuff. But you just try to manage it as best as possible, go to as many tournaments as possible. I think that tournament experience is one of the most important things. In terms of even networking as a content creator, going to a tournament can be a really useful asset, or meeting other people and being able to do collaborations like literally we are doing right now,
Mhm.
is something that going to a tournament, building relationships can be all about. And then you also get the experience of playing people that you don't usually play, getting different perspectives and answering or asking questions to people that have advice for you. So I think that tournaments are almost like this cheat code of everything where like you gain experience in all the different aspects that you want to. But man, it's a real job, it's a grind, and you just have to commit yourself and put in the hours, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's hard too. I mean, obviously, I'm not really, my focus hasn't been on competing at the highest level, but like, shifting from, it's definitely like, content creation's hard in a lot of ways that you don't even really foresee getting into it. Like you said, like, it's like definitely a skill unto itself.
Mhm.
And it, for better or for worse, right? It's like to be a top player in Melee, you almost kind of have to. Like, it'll be really interesting. I'm watching. I've got my eye on right now is J-Mook. I want to see how J-Mook handles it. I know he
Mhm.
just quit his job at Starbucks, and he's gonna try to do full-time Melee, which I think he should because he's clearly got the talent and
Yeah.
the skill for, and I think he's got the charm as well. I think he'll probably be a pretty entertaining
Mhm.
guy, right? But it's its own journey for sure, right? It's just a different income stream, I think, than a lot of people are used to kind of setting themselves up for. And it's definitely not for everybody. And I guess the thing that I also want to emphasize to people is like, if you're the average fledgling Melee player and you're idolizing and you're looking up to these top players, or whatever, you've got maybe Mango, you watch Zane, whatever, whoever your favorite top player is that probably streams and probably does it full time. I also want to emphasize that doesn't have to be you, right? Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be for everybody. And as happy as I am that there are people like Jinder in the community, I'm also happy that there are people like Lot. And
Mhm.
I love that I want to emphasize to people that like it doesn't have to be a full-time thing. Like if it's not for you, you can be very good at Melee, and if you're rigorous about your time management and things like that, you can also just do it as a hobby up to I think a very very high level. Lodge showing that you could do it at like a roughly top 10 level, but
Mhm.
I mean, you can be a very very prominent player and have it still basically just be a hobby. And I think that's awesome. It just then becomes more of a challenge of your time management and your how good you are at effective practice, because obviously you're just
Mhm.
naturally going to have fewer hours in the day. So it really is ultimately, I think, what you want to make of it. And there isn't going to be any one path. Everyone kind of has to figure out their own thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to kind of talk maybe something concrete about balancing content, balancing
Mm-hmm.
competition. Like, let's imagine, I think some good numbers are, I've seen some talk about how, usually like 3 to 4 hours is a sweet spot for how long you want to stream, and then you might have, maybe anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week of that, depending on how much you want to value that income. And so you'll have that going on. And then maybe during the times where you're not streaming, like the days you're not streaming, you spend that time working on YouTube, you're talking with editors or whatever, and you're getting that stuff cut up. Maybe you're also doing coaching. Plenty of people are doing that, and you're working on that. Maybe someone has decided they want a refund and they don't remember their email, and you're going on a roundabout half-hour chase with them or whatever. There's a lot of things that can just inconspicuously eat up your time that are involved in all these things. But there's also, I mean, but there's also just the fact that we've got back-to-back tournaments coming up here. Some people are going to all of those. I mean, thinking about how you're supposed to manage preparing for a tournament with trying to be personality person, I think it is difficult, and because people are grinding on their own so much, or with other people who are grinding on their own and not hanging out as much or whatever, especially now that we have Slippy, people are not as used to being content creators. And so there's this big adjustment, and we're trying to figure out how we can make all of this work for ourselves, because not everyone's built to be, a superstar and to have all this content work for us. And how do we account for that? And that's its own question. But regardless, I think this is just another thing that speaks to the need for an off season. And I guess the only other thing is I'll just kind of throw in here is money's tight. We all know money's tight in this community, which is what leads to situations like this. And hopefully it can be a benefit for all of us. If we can make better content and we can figure this out, then this can just be a benefit for our community. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still hard and it's a tough ask. There are solutions. I think, it's almost good to have a whole maybe podcast talking about them. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we can do. There's been some that there was one that Blur and Tafo did a podcast about that a little bit ago, and they talked about how you could basically rebuild Melee from scratch, and then you wouldn't have the IP in it, and then we could be free that way. And regardless of what you think of the idea, at least there are ideas to discuss out there, and it's something to consider. And so, just wanted to throw in a couple more hard numbers, some solutions, some other thoughts about it, because it's a big topic and it really connects to a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question, Rox.
Sure.
Definitely a deep one. Is that something you've been thinking about yourself, or?
No, right now, no. You're my heroes, right? You are the people that I love to see. You are like my basketball players.
Oh, thank you.
And I love to see you all here, right? Especially Ginger, right? Talking to Ginger is something that I see like week to week. He is my working buddy. When I'm working late, he's there.
Oh, very nice.
Looks like we got the right guest this week.
Heck yes. Love you,
Yeah,
Rox.
no, I love you all, and thanks for having me. Shout out from Costa Rica. So doing
Very
what
nice.
you do. I know this is really hard for you, and this is a question that I want to pull up there, because when you are like this son, especially as this son as me, right? Because for me, you are virtual people in my screen. Sometimes it's easy to forget that you're people also.
Yeah.
And you have the struggles, that you have mental health, that you need to balance all these things. And I'm a dad, and I have 3 kids, and I will be like sweating bullets knowing like if he having like enough for eating this week. So I know this is hard. I know you are putting yourself in the line, especially when you don't have like a good day or a good stream. So shout outs to you. Keep doing what you're loving. You're killing it, all you 3.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe can I give a shout out?
Sure.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
Okay, first of all, a shout out for Chilling Dude. So if anyone needs to make a donation, go ahead and do it. And the other one is, I don't know any Melee players in Costa Rica, but I want to give a shout out to Jay, the ultimate player from Costa Rica. He's awesome. He is great. And if you don't know it, you should take a look at his
Figure it out.
Meta Night. So
wow. Hope to see him at on the major stage one day.
he's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey,
that's awesome.
Appreciate
Costa Rica.
Rob.
I'll make my way there someday. Can't wait.
All right. You take care, gamer. Thank you again for calling in.
That's pretty dope. It's cool having that representation all over the globe, especially from a place like Costa Rica that I have to imagine is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we got time for at least one more question. Let's get our next caller in here, and it's gonna be Casper.
Hello.
And what's up, Casper? Hello.
Oh, hi, Casper.
Hi, Ginger.
Hello, Casper. Welcome to the program. Where are you calling in from, and what's your question for us today?
I am calling in from Ontario, Canada.
Nice.
And my big question is mostly for Toph and Ginger, but PP, you're more than welcome to answer.
All right.
I know Toph and Ginger, you are both involved in the Guilty Gear scene now with Guilty Gear Strive and the FGC.
Oh yeah,
so
sure.
I just want to know what you find culturally different between like the greater FGC and sort of the Smash community.
Yeah, I was at CEO this past weekend, and I went to Comma Breaker as well. And I think obviously there's more. I think we have more in common than we have that are, there's more in common. What's the phrase I'm looking for here? Whatever. There's more in common than there are things that are different. But there's certain differences. I think that, okay, so a couple things that I noticed that are really prominent that stand out. One, obviously Melee players just want to play Melee. And then even just Smash, like even Ultimate players, right? It's not even just the fact that it's an old game. It's also the fact that like Ultimate players, a lot of them just want to play Smash. That's just kind of how it is. I mean, I think, which makes sense. I think Smash is a pretty good game. And, I think something that we really appreciate about Melee, something I really appreciate about Melee is I feel like any effort I put into Melee is going to go rewarded in the sense that I think Melee is going to be around for a long time. And I feel that way because it has been around for a long time. Whereas, I grinded a game like Grand Blue Versus for a long time and I was getting pretty good at that game. And shout out to the Grand Blue Versus community. Obviously it's still around, but like, I think a lot of the top players, they moved on to Guilty Gear Strive or whatever, and you're fighting. And that totally happens all the time, right? With the FGC. So, I think there's more of a culture of moving on to the next game. And I think that's good in some ways and bad in some ways. Like, obviously it's really good for them because I think it's easier to, they just, sometimes, or like even as a streamer in Melee, right? Sometimes there's just weeks where it feels like nothing's happening. It's like, it's kind of a dry week, there's no news, whatever. Wait, but so-and-so, HBox had a crazy pop-off this week at East Coast Friday, right? You kind of gotta, sometimes it feels like you gotta scrape the bottom of the barrel for Melee content. Granted, right now we got a lot of tournaments, but in the FGC, there's always like some new game coming out or something. So
or a patch.
Or a patch, right? Or a patch, right? And I think that also for on a little bit of a deeper level, I've kind of noticed that in a mentality standpoint, I feel like Melee players tend to have a problem with taking losses harder on average, I've noticed, than FGC people. And I think that there's a tie in there. I kind of have this theory that like, because in the FGC, there's a lot of games and like it's not such a single-minded focus on one thing. I think that also helps distance your, we talk about there's Melee players who kind of, like I saw Mike Hayes tweeting even this morning about how he was like, I wish I didn't tie so much of my self-worth to my tournament results. I see a lot of, I do feel like I see a lot less of that in the FGC. I think they're a little bit less rankings oriented than we are. We're big on rankings in Smash. We love those tier lists. We love those MIM rank, PGR. They don't really do stuff like that as often. I don't think they really do power rankings to the degree that we do, for better or for worse. I think that it's probably in the FGC, I find that people are less, I think the average fighting gamer is just they're less pressed about a tournament loss than the average Melee player. I will say just on average. That's something I notice. And I think that's partially because, in Melee, if you lose to somebody, that's going to show up on a spreadsheet somewhere, and then Practical Task is going to use that to categorize you into, the C tier versus the B tier. He's coming for you. But on the, in the FGC, if I drop a set to Joe Schmo and Strive, there's going to be a patch next month anyway where our character, they're probably going to buff my character. And then it doesn't, so it's, which I think makes it easier to accept losses. And I think that that's a healthy thing. So anyway, that's my little take. I know I went relatively sort of deep there, but yeah, Ginger, I don't know. What do you think? You could go in a completely different direction with your answer. But anyway, that's just what I observe.
Yeah, I don't even think I really could go in a completely different direction, but I mean, Casper probably knows this, but I haven't been to a tournament where I just enter like an FGC event. But I have been to lots of Melee tournaments where there are also FGC events. So I kind of, and I actually have gone with Kalindi to a couple Dragon Ball Fighters tournaments, essentially.
Oh, sure, yeah.
At least in Michigan, something that I will say that Toph didn't bring up, the trash talking culture is very different. It seems like trash talking is just kind of more accepted or supposed to happen, like egging people on or giving them a hard time if they drop a combo, or if you're like whooping somebody in friendlies. Even the people are like yelling and hollering and having a time about it. In the Melee community, you sit down, can I join this setup? and then you all sit there quietly and play your game for God knows how long. And you have a great time. You stand up, hey guys, I got to get food. See you later. But it is different interacting with people while you're playing the game. It seems like, and like I said, that's just my experience at like Michigan FGC tournaments that I've seen. But also, it's really interesting that you brought up that they take losses better, because it's something that I've noticed even from just like watching player cams. They never really seem that upset, and it makes so much sense that like Punk loses in Strive and he laughs, and he shakes his opponent's hand or whatever, and then like he's got Street Fighter later on, like,
right?
Okay, he's got to go do his thing.
Yeah. He goes on Twitter. He's like, I don't even play this game. I'm the alpha.
Exactly. Yeah, he whoops somebody, but then like gets washed in grands or something. Yeah, I don't
whatever.
Even play.
Whatever.
Yeah, but in Melee, one thing is that it's such a hard game. The second thing is that your skills don't transfer very well to other games. Legitimately, like if you're good at an anime fighter, a lot of times that means you're going to be good at other anime fighters, or if you're good at just trad fighters in general. So in Melee, your skills don't transfer that well, so you dedicate a lot of time to this really hard game. And you
hang on,
really
to interject here. Me and PP were fucking nasty day one multiverses, so I disagree.
Okay.
But anyway,
we were beating tournament players.
We were. Those guys were probably 10 or 11 years old. We were so much better than them. But anyway, go on, Ginger. Sorry to cut
That's
you off.
funny. But yeah, so we might have some, we might be better at platform fighters than some other people, at least within the genre, for sure. But it just feels like you put so much into Melee, and when you lose, your world is shattered. I've lost in Melee tournaments and been like, what is my life? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's going on? Do I even deserve food? Like,
right.
Everything shatters around me because I've put so much into this one thing. One, because it's like it's a career. It just takes so much time. There's so many factors. But in fighting games, it seems like you kind of maybe have your main game. Then you play other games and you do your own thing, blah 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 blah. And those games also, from what I've seen, don't really have the same staying as Melee. So it's harder to commit yourself as like Melee. Oh, Melee, I'm gonna make that my career. Somebody could say that, right? But it's like, oh, Guilty Gear Strive? It's like, dude, in 2 years, who even knows if Guilty Gear Strive is even going to be a thing? All the people that played Dragon Ball, I mean, they had like 4,000 entrants for all their tournaments, but now the scene is like dwindled like crazy. It's so hard because Melee has that staying power that you want to invest yourself so much in that it does feel like taking losses is a lot harder. Let's see, other things culturally. Oh, one thing I was going to bring up is that when I was growing up, I would see the FGC and be like, wow, that's a bunch of old people all playing their old people games. Like, oh, Street Fighter, they play in arcades or whatever. And, some of them were like 30. Some people were like in their 20s or whatever. And like we mentioned before, I started playing Melee when I was 7. But man, we have caught up to them. A lot of Melee players are, like you were saying, there's a lot of similarities. Like, we really are sort of like this older FGC where a lot of people are in their upper 20s. Some of them are in their 30s. And I look at the FGC community and be like, oh, yeah, this is another guy who's around my age. We just play video games. That's kind of cool. But Melee was not always like that back in 2007 or whatever. It was a lot of younger college people, high school age people that all wanted to play the game. So it's kind of interesting how that's shifted over the years, I guess I would say.
I will say that I do feel like culturally, in terms of some of the things I talked about, I feel like we're getting closer to the FGC in these days. Talking about taking losses and stuff like that. I think we've gotten a lot better at that, and you don't need to look much further than like the Twitters of a lot of the top players now compared to like 2015, where it was almost a guarantee that you would see some really sad tweets. Or upset tweets or etc. And I feel like there's a lot less of that now. Overall, I feel like we've just gotten better at it because the people who stuck around, it's just something you need to work on. You just can't, for your own mental health, you can't be in a community that long and take losses that hard and survive. I think, right? So I think we've gotten better at it. Just when I look at the top players in the scene, and I also just do think that's a function of getting older. I mean, I remember when some of these people were, 15, 16, right? And we used to have so much bullshit, just getting, just crazy trash talk getting tossed around. And I think nowadays, I think we're getting to the point where we both know how to have a little bit more fun with it and also not take it so harsh. So, yeah, I do think we're kind of getting closer to some of the things you're saying. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for what it's worth, like I think Smash players are also probably playing more fighting games than we ever had before. Just when I look at like 5-10 years ago, I didn't feel like I knew anybody in the Smash community that played fighting games, and now I feel like actually a good bit. I mean, even Mango was streaming Strive for a couple weeks, right? And I just don't think that would have happened before. So, maybe as time goes on, we're just kind of slowly kind of getting closer and closer. I would love to see a resurgence personally of, Smash tournaments at fighting game tournaments. Like, CEO is actually really interesting because I was looking at entrant counts and Melee was like the 4th or 5th most entrant count game. That was not grammar correct, but when I actually dug into it, Melee had like 224 entrants and like Street Fighter 5 at like 227 entrants. And then like the next highest was 230 something. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. Melee actually had a lot of like Melee almost, like if it had like 10 or 20 more entrants, it would have had like the second, or no, it would have probably been behind Ultimate and Strive, which you kind of would expect, but like I was like, man, yeah, damn, we're still definitely just and this was for a game that I think in a tournament like CEO, like granted it was Panda Cup, but like yeah, it didn't have a lot of the, like, it was more of, it felt like a half regional, like it wasn't truly like a major in that sense, right? So yeah, I mean, I definitely still felt like, maybe there's a case to bring Melee back to some of these fighting game events. I would love to see more Melee at tournaments like Combo Breaker and stuff like that in the future. I'd love to see more Melee players come out. Because I always have a good time at those kind of hybrid FGC Smash tournaments. But anyways, see what happens in the future, I guess. PP, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, the crossover I think has always been good, and I think it just benefits everyone. Just, for example, doing content with other people or whatever. But as far as the original question goes, yeah, I mean, I thought about it a little bit, and this is the discussion I've seen on it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems like there was some talk a little while back about how in the FGC there was confusion or frustration with the quote unquote hero worship that occurs in the Smash community, the Melee community, moreover, the gods or top players or whoever. And there's more of a ruggedness to the FGC. Like you're trash, I'm gonna body you. That's the end of it. They just want to beat whoever, and there's not so much extra thought that's in it. And so Melee at least has more of a spectator contingent to it, where it's almost everyone in the FGC feels more like a player. And that again I'm just going to keep going, and once I'll be done in a second, you can correct me on these points, but from some people put forward the idea that this would be from arcade culture where anyone could step up and play anyone as long as you had a quarter or two or whatever, and that's where that would be. Now, I don't know how much of a basis all of that has in truth, but that's what I've heard, and that would be neat and would tie into some of the things you guys have said if true.
Yeah, I think that's totally legitimate for sure.
I think it's actually. Oh, go ahead.
I think the biggest thing I've noticed is for like weekly online tournaments, they hate using start.gg for some reason. Everything's run on like challenge in like a single Discord channel, and it's so disorganized. You have to find all your matches with everyone else trying to find their matches at the same time.
These are the people that play fighting games in parking lots. This is
Well, the thing is, setting up a tournament in challenge is just easier. Start.gg is easier for the spectator, and having features on top of literally just running a bracket. And also I think it's better for like payouts and stuff like that, because I think challenge just doesn't have that functionality. But if you're not at the level where you're running like at least a regional to where you need that payout functionality, you probably just don't. If you don't need that, it's just like less. You can just go with the bare bones.
Well, these are like over 100 entrant tournaments hosted on
really?
Challenge.
Oh shit!
Yeah. Like Salt Mine League for the EU is all hosted on Challenge. That gets like 100 tournaments or 100 entrants.
Yeah.
For what game?
For Strive.
For sure. Yeah.
So Casper and I have entered some of the same Strive tournaments, and they are just silly. Like what you're talking about with the payout and everything, that makes sense. But they'll have the bracket on Challenge, and then they'll have a Discord that you have to join in order to like play in the tournament or whatever. And then there's just like a general chat. Maybe there's a like report your scores chat. And people use those interchangeably. It doesn't really matter.
Nice.
And it's just flooded with results constantly, just bouncing up and down. Maybe somebody's tagging the TO, maybe they're not. I don't really have any idea. And then the TO has to go and scroll through there and input them all into the challenge bracket and say, okay, you guys can finally play now. These people will have to play. And it's like, dude, there's a website that does all of this for you. I promise. Like, it is kind of weird that they won't even use it for larger tournaments, but heck, they love to do it, I guess. I don't know.
Fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. I should enter probably some of these at some point.
Fun.
I'm getting back into Strive. As you know, I entered it at Combo Breaker. Combo Breaker being my first major that I traveled to only enter a fighting game.
That's so sick.
Might be doing that again in Evo. We'll see what happens when Evo comes around.
Good luck.
I know.
But anyways,
W is getting back into it too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he got a lesson.
Potemkin didn't.
No, the Potemkin did not sway him, but he's back.
You know what's the funniest story? The funniest part of that story is that Potemkin player was apparently just a smasher.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, wow.
He's
Yeah,
also like 13 or something too, I think.
That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Yeah, that makes it the best.
Yeah, he got a
That
lesson
makes
with
it the best.
Top Giovanna player Akarian recently.
Oh, wow.
So he's actually been trying to put in the effort. Yeah.
IBW's playing Giovanna. Is that what's going on?
No, he's still playing Milia.
Okay, that's yeah. Millie got buffed, right? I heard.
He did.
Milia got buffed.
There you go. There you go. Lord Knight barely missed top 8 at CEO. It was close, but had to go through. Had to go through someone. Who was it? It was someone really good. It was like K7 or somebody like that. So what are you gonna do? No, I made that up. It was someone else, but whatever. Point being, it was a tough. You know what? I'm just gonna pull it up. It's that
I wish I
easy,
could
right?
remember.
It's that easy with start.gg. I'm just gonna. Oh, Google's being slow. Hang on a minute. Come on, Google.
Yeah, it's been much.
Wait, what do you think? What do you think about that, Casper?
Yeah, I thought those answers were pretty good. I liked the discussion on like taking losses better because it is kind of like a homie mentality that's more prominent in fighting games where they all kind of understand that everyone's a competitor, everyone wants to win. Losing is just part of, getting to that end goal of, being the best.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Oh, it was Flash Metroid. That's right. Anyway.
Flash Metroid.
That guy's really
I
good.
also got buffed. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Kai did get buffed. And that guy's really good, I think.
Yeah, Flash Metroid's insane.
Anyway. All right. Well, thanks for the call, Casper. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your question. Any shouts you want to do on the way out?
Shout outs to my local scene and local team, Angry Burly Bros. They're going to be helping run Gommel for Smash Ultimate. So
wow,
it's going to be super awesome. And yeah.
Look at that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, gamer.
Super Burly Bros.
Angry Burly Bros. They're mad.
Peace out, Casper. See you in chat later. Mad.
Clarification.
Angry. What'd I say? Super? Yeah, super angry.
Super
There
angry.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know when we started due to all the chaos, so I don't really know how long this episode's gone on.
No, we're coming up on about the end of it. I think we can kick it over to anything else you wanted to ask if you wanted, and then we could get Ginger's community voice.
Well, how are you feeling, Ginger? Do you want to do one more, or you want to do community voice? What's your feel? What's your vibe?
You could have me talk about Melee forever. So let's do one more.
Beautiful.
I'd love it.
All right. Well, we're going to do Melee, but we're going to do it related to something maybe a little more personal.
Oh.
And so, this is a question that, I think is certainly important to me. And I think it's becoming increasingly important to a lot of people, as I've learned. And that's the concept. That's the discussion about health in Melee. I mean, where, a lot of, just as a general thing, we're all sitting a lot while we're playing and all that good stuff. But, I remember you tweeting and saying that you were having, and you please correct me if I get any of this wrong, but you were saying you're having some heart issues or things like that. And I don't remember exactly if there was surgery or if there was something serious that had to be done to remedy that. But my understanding was it was a serious situation. So I'd like to, I guess, get a follow up so that people can kind of know what's going on, so they can, understand that players are people too and have these things happen, and we're able to overcome that and move forward, because I think if nothing else it's inspiring.
Yeah. So first off, I'm doing great. Didn't have to have surgery or anything. Luckily, it turned out to be nothing serious. All of my symptoms were sort of pointing to maybe being myocarditis, I think, which is something that a lot of people get after they have COVID. And I was experiencing these symptoms of myocarditis after I had gotten the vaccine, which was, just like, oh God, I hope my heart's not freaking messing up. But just to be clear, because I don't know if they're anti-vaxxers in the chat or something, but if you get COVID, it's a lot worse for your heart than if you get the vaccine. So even if this was triggered by the vaccine, it would have demolished me even harder if I had COVID. But yeah, I was all day long having these weird, I describe them as like murmurs or just like skipping beats pretty constantly. And it made it impossible to like focus. It would be painful at times, which was kind of scary to me. They had to run some pretty serious tests, but again, they came back, nothing too serious, give it a little bit more time, and my heart is a lot better, which is awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on my health, or do you want me to talk
Yeah,
about my
no,
health
I
in general?
guess the only thing is I wasn't sure if it had been a longer standing issue, but that's good. So
Mhm.
that's been wonderful. If I guess I can do one other thing real quick then, since you wrapped that up really
Sure.
well. And I was curious, you've mentioned that you're putting, all the time and everything into Melee right now, and I didn't know. I just wanted to get a quick clarification on if you were also working or anything else like that, because I've heard conflicting things about it, and I wanted to kind of get a sense of that, because if you were, then that would also be really cool because you're a spacey player and doing that, and
Mhm.
that's a interesting sign for people. But if you're not, that's totally fine, and we've cleared up another thing, and that would also be cool.
Yeah. No, I don't work anywhere. I don't go to school. I'm full-time Melee. So, I think it was, oh goodness gracious, when was this now? I think 2017 was the last time I had a job that wasn't Melee, where I worked at Subway. This actually randomly came up when I was talking to Toph earlier.
Oh,
But yeah, I worked at Subway. I worked at Subway for like 3 years. I was a manager for a really long time, and then I had like enough followers on Twitch, and I had like around 100 subs, and I was like, you know what? I could pay my rent with this. So
oh man, what a decision!
yeah,
Woo!
I was like, you know what? I'll just do this.
Scary.
I have just so nobody gets too inspired by any of this. I have a screenshot on my phone of my bank account that had 8 cents in it, and my rent was due in 10 days. And you know what? I had to go to those locals and beat KJH, or else I don't know what I was gonna do.
Oh
no.
man.
Yeah, so I've been
And
in
you
some pretty
did.
tough spots, and I did. But I also another thing about me is I went to college for 2 years. I was studying music education. I no longer do that. Music's still a huge passion of mine. I don't participate very often anymore. But yeah, went for 2 years, realized it wasn't for me, and then I spent essentially a year working and reevaluating my passions, which is where I landed on, okay, Melee's blowing up as an esport. There's a lot of players getting sponsored. I believe in myself to be able to do this. I'm going to save up, buy a streaming computer, move to the closest city that's like that has like a big hub of smashers, and I'm just gonna go full blast. So that's sort of my story with all that. But yeah, I'm luckily, I guess, able to support myself just doing
Yeah.
Melee, so it gives me a lot of time to work on being a competitor.
That's awesome. And what I love about your answer there is you said you took time to figure out what you really wanted, why you would
Mm.
really want Melee, what it means to you, where you want to be, what your goals are, and then
Hmm.
you set up a plan to make that happen. I think so many people are like, "Well, I want to do it because I think it's fun," and like
Right.
there's good. I love that, and I want you to have fun with Melee, but having a plan, having some sort of idea of when can I do this sustainably? What do I need? How can
Hmm.
I structure my life or whatever? I think is going to be so valuable. So I think that is really helpful. And I asked, I guess, some, maybe not the best questions to get there, but you know what, you had a good life story, so we got there, and that's
Well,
awesome. So
thanks.
thank you for your answer.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, now that we've hopefully actualized a few more Melee players, we can move on to the community voice. It is your time, Ginger, to take whatever you've decided from this session or something that you just want to know and ask the YouTube comments anything you want, anything you can think of you could think of it as asking the Melee community a question. You can think of it as asking, just the GG audience a question, but something you think is interesting, something you think is funny, something that you really want to ask them. So we've had questions ranging from who would Elijah Wood main to what would make you go to a local
That's right.
to, who would, I don't even remember. I don't know. what it was.
Today we had which fusion of two players would you like to see?
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And we
Right.
had some pretty good answers.
Those were
Yeah.
good answers.
Those were really good answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be whatever you want, but this is your time. It is your moment. It is your question.
Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious. I've been trying to think of like a really good question. There are a few that are on my mind. Um, but I'll say, um, God. Okay. My question that I'm gonna ask is, how do you form your personal opinion about top players?
Ah.
Wow.
I like this one. I'm gonna learn something from this one, I think.
Yeah, I think this is
Absolutely.
interesting because there's a lot of different mediums that people interact with top players, but a lot of people don't know
Yeah,
anybody's full story, right? So how do you form your opinion on top players?
Now, I'd be interested to see how much, because the amount of people that come in and have assumptions about me and my stream is quite high
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and so I think, I get the feeling that they're learning this from other people's streams, or maybe they're interacting in some other mediums that
Totally.
we don't have to name,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Totally.
I'm curious about how much of that pans out, and how much people go to the source, and how much people go from other places. So that's an
Yes.
interesting question, and I'm curious. Maybe people answering for themselves or seeing what their friends do, and yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Good question.
Thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, one thing, just real quick on the back of that question, I always say, if you ever want to get to know me, I try to be the most approachable person at tournaments ever. If you want to come up and talk to me and introduce yourself, I'd love to have a short conversation.
Except for after
Maybe
you
you can play
lose.
some games. Yeah, after I lose, I'll probably just try to avoid you. You probably won't even have to try to avoid me. Um, But yeah, I love meeting people and getting a real sense of the community, and I think that's a really positive thing that we have, is that we get to meet up in person and learn about each other. So please, before you make any assumptions about anybody, I mean, give them a chance, try to meet them. I think it's a cool thing that you get to do.
For sure. All right. Well, Ginger, thank you so much for coming on today. Great answers, great knowledge.
Oh yeah.
And Toph, thank you so much for holding it down in my absence. Really appreciate it, King. And thank you all out there for calling in, watching, everything else. This is Radio Melee, signing out.